Let's party.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Party Loaded Podcast. It is Party Loaded episode 234 for Tuesday night, for a change. Sort of bucking the trend and not recording on our usual Wednesday slot. Instead, we're on the 10th of November, 2020. And oh, what a bright day it is. It's nice. Funny story, guys. I got to say, like, on the weekend, I found this pair of shoes that I've been dreading wearing. Because, you know, for some reason,
a terrible joke already.
There was a massive chunk of shit just stuck to the bottom of one of them. And I've been really, putting off trying to deal with it. But eventually, like, I managed to dislodge it with a whole bunch of help from some people around the place. I swear it's been stuck there for like 4 years, but the piece of shit's finally gone. So, yeah. It's good. Feeling good.
I don't know. The piece of shit is
actually.
No, it's it. It's this, ugly orange piece of... Anyway, so, That's it. Anyway, welcome. My name's Luke Retallick. We've got, joining me tonight, we have the Fire Team, which is probably pretty appropriate given what's going to be happening tomorrow, and down low the reason why we're recording tonight, not tomorrow. We got Matt, the Game Dad Diet. We got Christian, Paulson Brown, down below. Gents, what's going on?
Hello.
Yo, yeah. High five?
I'm fixing the focus on my camera. I'm not high-fiving.
Well, that would have been awkward if we were in the same room and I had have actually gone for the...
That's okay.
For our audio listeners.
Just go and knock over Christian's camera.
Yeah, that's it. No, so Adrian's off doing study prep tonight, so he's actually doing big boy stuff for real life reasons. And hopefully he doesn't defer from that too much and play a bunch of Destiny tomorrow when he should be focusing on other things for a couple of days longer at least. So that's it. But we'll have him back next week.
I think he only has a couple of days until all those exams are done. Yeah. So it should be back to gaming soon.
He'll be fine. And Matt, you're back from the brink of death, sort of nearly losing your voice on the weekend. So
I completely lost my voice over the weekend. And now, like, what was just a really severe, like, 24-hour bug has turned into a full-on sinus infection. So the only reason that I'm here tonight is thanks to whatever this decongestant nasal spray is, which has just completely flushed out my sinuses, much like the orange. Actually, no, it is kind of orange crap. So
yeah,
Yeah.
How good is the state of the world when people that are absolute shitheads are not in charge of it anymore? Wait, fuck, they still are. Damn it.
I love I saw a tweet going around that was basically like, live your life such that nobody celebrates when you get fired.
Good.
Yeah, people don't act like the desktop blew up when you get fired.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Look, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what knock-on effects it has for the games industry in the next couple of years. Because I think, if we can... maybe a little bit less fear when it comes to immigration after the coronavirus is finally kind of dealt with to a certain extent might be one of the bigger impacts. But financially, who knows? It's going to be one of those weird things. But it's good. It's good. We're finally up to that part of the year where 2020 is like in its proper redemption arc now. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I don't want to jinx it. So
it was that was a weird freaking week. Like there was so much just unusual news. One of them I've chosen as my news item tonight, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But there was just so many things that happened at the same time. Like, what's the weird? Not weird. It's the horror show, not horror. About the ghost, the demon hunters, or what it's called. I forget what it's called.
Oh, the one that I was talking about last week with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
No.
Ghost Hunters. Or
not Ghost Hunters.
Supernatural?
It's a TV show, right?
Oh, Supernatural. You're talking about
the freaking Supernatural
the Destrial thing. Yeah.
The Destrial thing. Yeah.
Don't know anything about that.
Yeah, Christian's not.
Well, Matt, maybe you should just very briefly explain it because I think most people probably wouldn't understand.
I had to look it up because of the fact that I didn't understand it, and then I was like, "What the fuck is this about?" So basically, in Supernatural, there's these two characters. I'm not even going to remember their names, but there's a ship that for them that's called Destiel.
Yep, Dean and Castiel. So Dean's
Castiel,
one of the two Winchester brothers who are the main two protagonists of the show, and Castiel's basically an angel that has been with them since about season 3 or 4, I think. It's been quite a while. They're up to like season 12 now. So final season. So
back when Tumblr was in its heyday and mega popular, there was this whole fandom, the Super Who Lock fandom, I think it was, where it's like all of these different franchises merged together.
Mm-hmm.
But they typically shipped they had this ship that was called Destiel. And everyone was like, that's never going to fucking happen. And then last week it happened on the show. Like the two characters, or at least like the one of the characters professed their love for the other, and the internet fucking lost it. But not in a good way. They were basically pointing at the fact that it was so weirdly acted out, because the show is just so like fucking past its heyday now.
I argue that Supernatural is fully aware of what it is, and that's what makes it great. Yeah.
I watched the first 2 seasons, and I felt like I watched them when I was 15. Like, how old is this show now?
Fucking old.
This is its final season, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been around a long time. It reminds me a lot of NCIS. I used to freaking love NCIS when I was a kid, and they're still recording episodes of it. It just never go away.
Yeah, the big difference between those sorts of formulaic shows, though, is that like NCIS in particular, and a lot of the CSI type shows, like you can watch any of them in almost any order, and it doesn't matter. Like there's no continued through line. With Supernatural, there is an ongoing plot that matters throughout just about every episode. So yeah, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like a soap opera. It's like a a slasher, a teen slasher flick soap opera in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, it's good. Is
it a video game though?
Well, I think if you were going to link it to a video game style, I think it would be pretty close to the Dark Pictures anthology style. More than
like Until Dawn stuff.
Yeah, and Man of Medan and Little Hope, which has just come out.
Little Hope just came out, yeah.
Yeah, and they've just announced the next one as well, which I think is called like House of Ashes or something like that. I'd have to check the name. Yeah,
I actually just recently, while I was working, and I was going through and marking students' work, I actually had Little Hope. A streamer was playing it in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke, we're never playing that on stream.
Little Hope. Why is that?
Yeah. Because it makes a lot of the same mistakes the first one made. It has improvements in some places.
Yep.
But without spoiling the ending, I'm just going to say the ending is shit.
Right.
Like, oh my God, it's garbage. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. So like it would literally be like if we played it on stream, I think we just both end it disappointed. So
right,
yeah.
Unless we just laugh at it wholesale. And
yeah, I don't even know if you would laugh because it's just it's a depressing bad.
Wow.
Like yeah,
not
good
enough. Well, I just checked that one I was mentioning is called House of Ashes. So yeah, which will be out God knows when. But I still get the impression that whole kind of line of games pretty much peaked at the very beginning with what was the first one called? You said a second ago, Christian.
Until Dawn.
Yeah, Until Dawn. Yeah. Which obviously would have had a lot more development time put into it instead of the anthology approach they've gone since then. But yeah.
So you're saying they're telltaling a bit, are they?
It actually seems a lot like that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say Telltale had better storytelling. And part of the thing that the whole series, like, there's a theme now that I've watched Little Hope, and that theme seems to be like things that seem scary but are not supernatural.
Yeah.
And it's all these weird fake outs, and I don't understand why they can't just embrace, like, why do they have to fake everything out? Like, why can't they be like, it's actually a ghost, Oh my God.
It's almost like the X-Files approach, where almost every X-Files episode, with some exceptions when they actually did lean heavily into the alien stuff, was all stuff that seemed supernatural and extraterrestrial, but actually had a real-world explanation.
That was always ridiculous, though. I love X-Files, but like the real-world explanations for like almost all that stuff was ridiculous, and it was always like embarrassing for Scully, because she had to play the skeptic. Yeah. But like those are situations where it's just ridiculous to be a skeptic in.
Yeah. Like what Little Hope does is it pulls a Super Mario 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Ew. Okay.
I love that I could quote that and you know exactly what I mean straight
English
away.
speakers would not approve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, we got plenty better games to talk about and enjoy aside from Man of Medan offshoots. So now, Matt, I'm kind of aware, given what I know we've all played this week, this is probably going to be the mostly game dad game week segment.
Yeah, apparently.
So before we do that, let's just get a little bit in with Christian and I, and then we can shuffle over to some of the more unique stuff that you've played this week. So Christian, you left off last week when we were chatting about you playing around with some of the older games on PS4. Yeah, the Last Guardian and Shadow of the Colossus. But Last Guardian you played through to the completion this week, as I understand.
Yes, yeah. So last episode I'd finished Shadow and was on to Last Guardian. Now I finished Last Guardian as well. Ended up only being about 13 hours, I think, 12, 13 hours, which was fine for me. It was a nicely paced game, ideal length. I talked last episode about how I was really impressed by it and how I really liked Trico as a character and an entity in the games, and that all lasted all the way through. I think it has a really good emotional ending, and I was consistently impressed with The Last Guardian, with everything other than the performance, which I talked about. And I said on Twitter that it would potentially be one of my favorite games of all time, probably in my top 20. It wouldn't make the top 10, but I think it could be a low top 20 if it had better performance, right? Which it doesn't. But yeah, it was really that good. I being an animal lover and a dog person, I really felt attached to Trico, and I'm somebody, I think people would say that in many situations I have a lot of patience, and so the frustrations never got to me. I feel like a lot of the people who complained about the AI, as I think we talked about a bit last episode, so I don't want to go on too much, but I think they were trying to treat Trico too much like an AI companion that you could just point to and it would just do what you want.
Yeah.
And if you played at the pace that the game expected you to play, then it's fine. There were only a couple of times where there was some actual moments of frustration that I had, and that was clearly stuff that it wasn't Trico's behavior. It was the AI kind of doing a bit silly things, it kept walking up and down a tower, and then it get to the top of the tower, and then I tell it to keep moving forward, but then it would turn around and go down the tower again. Right. And I could tell that wasn't supposed to be happening. But other than that, it was really good, and a really good ending to that game too, and a surprising ending, because I think a lot of people before that game came out had predictions about how they thought that game would end, just based on how those sorts of tales typically end. With a beloved animal companion. But I found that it was pleasantly surprising, the ending. So
nice, yeah. I saw some stuff during the week about frame rates and PS5 port of that game. So what was the story?
Yeah. So that's an interesting topic, because on PS5, if you play a downloaded version of the game that's pre-patched, or if you patch the game from a disc, then it has a 30 FPS lock, and it does hit, and it's a stable 30 as opposed to PS4, which is a very rocky 30. But if you play an unpatched disc version, then the frame rate is uncapped to 60. So what's the increase capped to 60? So somewhere along the way, they patched in a frame rate lock. And it's not clear why. I haven't read anybody talking about instability or unintended negative effects of having the 60 FPS. It is weird, yeah.
Maybe they just did it for consistency's sake.
Yeah, because maybe if it was fluctuating a little bit above, maybe they're probably just targeting a locked 30. They probably wanted a locked 30, as opposed to flipping back and forth over 30. Yeah. But I feel like in the end they didn't get what they wanted, because it does drop down into the 20s and probably in the teens a lot. So I think it might have been just a bit of oversight or wishful thinking to put that lock in there. And I hope that they remove that now, or at least toggle, because it does have, like a lot of games, it has a resolution mode and a performance mode. So they could at least go in and tweak that so that the performance mode has the 60 FPS.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
So in your opinion, do you think that would resolve a number of the performance issues that you encountered? Or
definitely, yeah. I think that playing this for the first time at 60 would have been a much better experience. I don't regret playing it on PS4 because it was a nice kind of swan song for the console. But for anyone who is interested in playing it, if you happen to be picking up a PS5, I think you'll get a much better experience.
Okay.
If you play an unpatched disc version.
That's fair enough. Well, anything?
I'll just quickly mention that I have been looking for PC games to play with my new graphics card because I got a 3070. But I've like jumped back into Destiny just to take care of a few things before the expansion. But other than that, I really put my graphics card to the test by playing Doom, the original DOS version of Doom. So really stressing the card,
Hang on a second. Did you play it on your PC using the new graphics card, or did you play it using the LED display on the side of the graphics card?
Graphics card. Yeah.
Probably would have run on that, and that, because it's off the back of that review I talked about last episode, 3.5 hour original Doom review. I just felt like playing it again. And all I have to say about it is that playing the original Doom with mouse controls is an abomination, and anyone who does that should be taken out back and because it's not good.
It didn't even occur to me that was a difference as well.
Because it was played with the arrows and it wasn't even WASD. It was before Quake invented WASD. So it was played with the arrow keys and then control to shoot. And then you actually in the original used the comma and the full stop to pivot on the spot.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So you're actually meant to play it in a little cluster with the right control key. So you're meant to kind of put your hands on the arrows and then the comma and the full stop and then tap the right control key. So and at the time I got used to that. But now I think there's just playing it on a full-on keyboard with the arrow keys and then rotating with A and D, I think is the ideal way to play it now. So you forward, back, left, right with the arrows and then rotate with A and D and shoot with spacebar. I think that's the best way to play the original Doom. And because you can't, there's no vertical aiming in the original Doom. You can't look up and down. So if an enemy's on a ledge, you would just shoot directly into the middle of the screen, and your bullets would just magically elevate. So there was no looking up. You didn't jump, anything like that. You just shot dead center, and the bullets would magically go up. But it means when you're playing with a mouse, you can go left and right, but you still can't go up and down, and so it just feels weird. And I don't recommend it.
Wow, I had totally forgotten that was even the case. And it's now made me think, what was the first game that normalized mouse control for looking around? Was it Half-Life?
No, it was Quake. I'm pretty sure it was Quake. Yeah,
that makes sense. Because I swear that sort of stuff was way before Half-Life, from what I remember.
Yeah, Half-Life was 98. Quake was 94, I think.
Did Duke 3D use it? I can't actually remember.
No, because Duke 3D was the build engine, same as Doom.
Wow, there you go.
Wait.
I honestly can't remember.
That.
Yeah. It's funny how your brain just obscures all of this shit that it would have been just an accepted thing for most of your life at that time. Just I guess you had no basis of comparison.
Yeah, definitely. Doom didn't have any of that stuff. No mouse controls, no WASD. Just like God intended.
Yeah. Nice.
It's funny you mention it because booting up Destiny recently just to do a couple of chores before things wrapped up. And the first-person shooter I've been playing recently has been Halo, and I've been playing with the controller. And then running around in Destiny with the mouse and keyboard just feels weird again. And it's actually had me I'm sitting there playing it, and I'm just keep on eyeing off at my Elite controller. I'm like, maybe I should. Maybe I should. No, I don't think I should.
Not in that one case. Maybe not. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Not Destiny on PC. I think it's fine.
I've never been able to break free of the first person is keyboard, mouse, third person is controller. That's always been my preferred scheme.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. Yeah. So on that topic, because this is related as well, this week I've been playing pretty much the same stuff I did last time, with one exception. So playing more Genshin Impact. Still really enjoying that game. I'm still going. I'm at adventure rank 40 now, which is getting right up there. I'm definitely at the point where I've slowed though. Like there's, I tend to jump in, do the dailies, do a little bit of wandering around, and some progression on different characters. I've gotten my main group's up to around level 70 plus at the moment, which is pretty good, including their weapons being up around the same standard. And their advancement has slowed a lot now because it starts to get really hard to get the resources you need. But I'm still keen on the game, and I still probably will play it even while I'm playing the new expansion stuff for Destiny, because there's new content coming out for Genshin in the next couple of days. So their big 1.1 patch is going to be dropping with new story content, a whole bunch of new characters. They've got a new reputation system that's coming in for the main settlements as well, where you can sort of level up and earn different kind of goodies from those places based on different bounty type tasks that you do with them. So it all sounds pretty cool. I'll continue to play for a while. I still enjoy it. But aside from that, a little bit of Destiny 2. But I had decided that before Beyond Light came out, I actually wanted to go back and play a bit of OG Destiny. And this week I did it. So I fired up my my original Destiny disc in my PS4, and I didn't even have Taken King. I've got the original just Destiny, the core campaign. I didn't ever buy Taken King because I actually didn't play through the rest of the original Destiny arc, which I really regret. And I did consider purchasing Taken King, but it's still like for the whole bundle with all of the expansion stuff with Rise of Iron and everything else, it's actually still quite pricey. I was shocked actually. Yeah. So I decided not to do that because I knew it was only going to be like a week's worth of messing around. So I played through the base campaign again. And I enjoyed it. It definitely felt different in a not quite as evolved sense, but the biggest shock to me was just getting back to using controller over mouse and keyboard again, which is entirely on par with what you were just saying, Matt. It's just like a massive shock to the system not using keyboard and mouse for Destiny, and made me so fucking thankful that the game is on PC now, because holy shit, that's just been revolutionary.
I forgot that Destiny 1 wasn't on PC.
No. Yeah. I mean, Destiny 2 didn't launch on PC initially either. It was months and months after the fact that it actually came to PC.
Crazy.
Yeah. I think it was like, what was it, like 3 months at least, maybe even more, maybe 6 to 9? It was a while. Yeah.
It was way delayed, because like it was never an option when we were talking about getting Destiny 2. Our options were everyone going out and buying an Xbox One, or everyone going out and buying a PS4, and PS4 won out in our group. It would have been way later. Like I'm pretty sure that was like after the Mars expansion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it might have been about 9 months actually. So
yeah, it was way later.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's way better on PC. I think the one thing that will stop me from ever playing Destiny with a controller again, it's just how good assault rifles feel with a mouse and keyboard. Because the controller, like you use an assault rifle with a mouse and keyboard, you can control when it kicks. On a mouse and keyboard you can control it. On a controller, it's just like it just shoots up the screen.
That being said, I have been hearing a lot of good shit this last couple of weeks about the new PS5 adaptive controller. And I'm very curious as to whether Bungie's put some work in to actually make use of that with the Destiny port for PS5. Because I tell you what, firing some of those guns with the adaptive controls and getting that force feedback would be pretty fucking sweet. So,
I'm so curious to finally figure out what the hell the deal is with that controller, because everyone's saying it's actually really cool. It's actually like a next gen thing. And I'm like, I just can't picture it at the moment.
I'm saying. How
is it not just Rumble?
But like me, you've probably seen that commentary in enough places now that you're thinking there must be something to this.
Yeah, so I'm curious to find out on Thursday.
Yeah, that's it. Not long to wait now, I guess. So, but yeah,
it kind of reminds me of the Switch controllers and the way that that they were like, we're gonna drop this ice cube and you can feel the difference. Like, fuck off.
yeah. That kind of stuff was always a little bit hardcore marketing speak for my life. But
100%.
When you hear people outside of that marketing engine that are actually hands-on playing it and sort of saying this actually is a lot better than I was expecting for these reasons, you're like, okay, cool, looking forward to playing around with it. But before we get off the Destiny sort of bandwagon, which alert to everybody, when you come and listen to us next fortnight, fucking strap in because that's a lot of what we'll be talking about, I suspect. So, because Beyond Light launches tomorrow at 1 a.m. in the morning for us. So I think we've all got pretty serious plans of gorging on that over the next week or two. And stream next week, pretty likely to be Beyond Light, I think, unless we all change our minds suddenly. But they had the end of season event today in the tower, which was something that they haven't done too many of these. They did one last season when the huge
second one they've done.
Yeah, this is number 2. The one last season, of course, was the huge sort of 3-hour lead up and very underwhelming sort of explosion of the Red Legion's almighty planet destroying sort of ship. Or sun destroyer.
I like the explosion.
That was cool.
I think the explosion would have been a lot cooler without the 3-hour lead up.
Yeah, 100%. But like the one that they did today was quite different in a lot of respects. I mean, for one, even though they kind of did give like a 3-hour window, besides the huge amount of time it took you to actually log into the damn game because of how fucking huge the queues were. When I first logged in, I was at like 17,000 something in the queue. It was insane. The number got down pretty quickly, but the thing that actually prevented me after I got to the head of the queue logging in was just like a litany of error codes. It was crazy how much sort of platform stability issues they must have been having. But eventually got in. But the biggest difference between this and the last time they ran a live event is because they linked this one to a mission that you could actually kick off from the tower yourself and get instanced into that mission. It meant that you had something to do instead of just waiting around and doing nothing. And that something to do, as it turned out, was actually a really cool tour of the last city in a lot of the areas that you experienced during the original Destiny 2 campaign when the Red Legion are actually invading. So during that, everything's fucked up and on fire, and there's mass military sort of marching the streets and all that sort of stuff. This time, it's all cleaned up and nice and neat, and people around, and it itself is quite unoccupied and desolate, like a lost civilization. But it's one that does feel more lived in. And it was just really nice. It was kind of like a nice send-off, sort of going through some of those streets and sort of experiencing it all for one last time before a lot of the sort of scenery changes for the new expansion. But getting to the end of that, you got some cool voiceover lines from a few of the characters about what's sort of happening, and the Traveler appeared to be healing itself, and all this crazy stuff going on. Little cutscene at the end as well, and you do sort of come out onto a balcony area where like there's a whole bunch of NPCs and other players instanced into that area, sort of watching what was going on. But from the time that we got in to stuff actually happening, didn't seem like anywhere near as long as last time. It was a lot more eventful. And I think that Bungie did a really good job of managing expectations for this one, because they literally said on their sort of Twitter beforehand, like Luke Smith tweeted out, it's just a nice little send-off, something casual, don't expect anything massive. It's just, a little bit of fun for everybody before the new expansion. And I think that's a beautiful way to do it, because it wasn't huge. It was just a nice cap to the season that was ending, and, a sweet little story link into what's going on. But the coolest part, in my opinion, was when the game went offline for about 14 hours worth of updates before the expansion launches, which it's on right now. If you try and log in at the moment, it actually says cannot connect to server. The light has abandoned you. Sort of seek us out on Europa for more information or something like that. I'm like, that's fucking cool. So yeah, well done.
Yeah, I love shit like that.
It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very good. I think the reason why it felt like the time went by a little bit faster was that there was always something happening, and it wasn't just kind of like staring up at this one point in the sky going, is something about to happen? Whereas this time you'd be like just running around. Like there's a much larger space. Like you don't get to explore that very often, so you get to run around. Like I stopped watching the Traveler for a little bit, and I just went running around and like exploring alleyways and that sort of thing. So it's a big area, quite a big area for it. It's not just held in the tower.
Having the voiceover at that point, though, I think was a really smart move, because if you had that window minimized somewhere else and you were doing something else at the time while you're waiting for something to happen, as soon as you hear Eris Morn speak to you, you're just like, change windows, what the fuck's going on? Yep. Yeah. So
and even then, like it wasn't like the visuals were pretty, but you could have literally just tabbed out and had it running in the background, listened to Eris's dialogue, and then tabbed back in for the little cutscene that kind of capped it out and gone, cool. And then logged off and called it a day. Yeah. But yeah, no, I thought it was well handled. It wasn't any Fortnite level online event or anything like that, and I wasn't expecting that. They made it clear it wasn't going to be, but I think they're still kind of finding their feet with this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of potential there. Like they rebuilt that part of the city to make this event happen. I can only imagine them in future, like with future potential events. They now have a bunch of places that they've just put in the vault that we can't go back to. Holding an event on one of those would actually be quite neat, you know?
I love the concept of live events because to me, especially being a resident of Australia, it seems that like a lot of events for big games and things happen in real life locations where they have like in-person tournaments and stuff in huge conventions and that stuff in the biggest parts of the world, like in the US and over in Asia and that sort of thing, which we always miss out on by geographical design. But doing stuff in game like this makes it actually attainable for us to get involved with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Time zone permitting, obviously, there's going to be some issues from time to time with that, but the concept intrigues me, and I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how this evolves in the next few years, because Fortnite and Destiny, a couple of the biggest games on the planet, there will be other games that step up and attempt this sort of shit over time, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, anyway, over to you, Matt. What has been the fun new stuff you've been playing this week?
Strap in, I've got a couple of things. A couple of stuff. I don't know what I'm saying. It's been a week. Yeah. So I'm gonna go through rather quickly on some of these. Teardown, I played that on stream with Luke. It's a voxel-based heist game where you tear shit down. Like you basically tear down walls to steal items, that sort of thing. And the whole game is essentially a puzzle game of destroying the landscape to kind of make a pathway to steal objects as quickly as possible. So the moment you start stealing something, you set off an alarm, and you have 60 seconds before the police arrive and arrest you. So you have to steal all the other objects. And you basically destroy the map to make a pathway between everything. So the stream that I was doing with Luke, I showed one of the really early missions, one of the simpler ones. Shaved off, I think, like 15 seconds from my original time. It was like 30 seconds we got done with. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we attempted another mission, which I hadn't done yet. And the reason I hadn't done it was because I opened it up and I was like, fuck that. And I closed it. It was basically like a really large map with 8 paintings, and you had to steal at least 4 of them. And so we were trying to figure out the route to go through and try to steal 8 of them.
Yeah, we went 4 of them only. Fuck that, let's get the lot.
we tried to get to 8. Yeah,
and then
that's the way I played it.
We spent like the next hour and 20 minutes trying to puzzle it out. It was hilarious.
It was really good. It was really good. Like, oh, what if we went from this building to this one? Oh, maybe we take this route. You know, drive a car through this freaking window. That was a great part. Like, actually being like, yeah, because the ramps are all voxel-based, vehicles don't really work well with them. And then I drove up it with a 4-wheel drive and smashed through the 2nd-story window of the building. And I was like, that works.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, it was really fun, kind of like puzzling that out. We only ended up getting the 4, or was it 5?
I think we got 5 in the end, but we did work out how to get all 8. It just required a little bit more time investment to do the prep. So, yeah.
Yeah. I had actually hopped back into the game later on to try and do all 8. And the one problem I have with the game in its current state is the fact that vehicle physics are garbage. Like, you're so reliant on the vehicle physics not screwing you up. And sometimes it will just be like, oh yeah, you hit a blade of grass and your car just stopped. And now because everything's destructible, the nose of it's actually gone down partially into the ground. Yeah. And you try to reverse, but the wheels don't have traction anymore. It's like, cool, that just destroyed that run. Fuck that.
Yeah. The vehicles going up slopes versus down slopes were a world of difference. Yeah.
That was one of the things that actually, when we were doing the 8 painting run, like, we decided to drive uphill, and we'd never really considered the vehicle physics and just how bad they are, because they get really floaty going uphill, but going down, it's like you just gun it. And so yeah, it's a little bit weird in that respect, but that's my only real big problem with it. It's still early access. But surprisingly good game. I can actually recommend it if you're into, something that's kind of a fun little hey, I'm going to spend 2 hours trying to complete this heist. Yeah, a really, really kind of fun puzzle game. The other one I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to leave my rant for last. The other one I'm playing at the moment is Foundation, which I picked up because the other game I'm going to talk about in a little bit isn't fucking working. So Foundation is another early access game. I usually don't buy early access games, but I've been watching a YouTuber that is playing Foundation, and it's right up my alley. It's basically crack for me. It's this little city builder, like medieval-based city builder game. And yeah, that's really all I need to say. It's a little medieval-based city builder game. So you're managing a village, you're building up your population, you're managing different kind of economies. So to make like polished stone, which is used for some higher end buildings, you have to first mine the stone, and then you have to have guys that are crafting that into better stone. But then you need to be able to provide for them, so that they need food, they need clothing. And yeah, it's all just about kind of like building up a city and kind of managing its economy and that sort of thing. And it's great. Like it's been a really nice chill game. But it has that whole freaking it has the Stellaris crack factor for me, where it's basically like, I downloaded it last night and I'm like, cool, I'll play a couple of hours before bed. And then at 4 a.m. I finally went to bed because I just get into this mode where it's basically like, oh, I'm just gonna tweak this one thing, and then I'll go get some sleep. And it's like, okay, well, I tweaked that, but now I've had this other thing pop up. I should probably do that before I sleep.
One more turn. One more turn.
It's basically the whole one more turn civilization thing, but building up this whole town. But one of my favorite things about it is that it gives you all these. It's not like city skylines where you just slap down a bunch of buildings and call it a day. Like there's a lot of beautification kind of involved, where it's like, okay, cool, I've put down my buildings, my economy's running well, I have a bunch of extra gold. I'm going to open up this menu that has all of these decorative bits, so I can just go in there and like decorate the town, put hedges down and that sort of thing.
I did notice before that because the building seems to be gridless, like there's a lot of aesthetic manipulation that you've got there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, it's not only that the buildings are gridless, but certain buildings, like the major buildings that you can create, can actually be customized. And there's certain attachments that you put onto them, and other structures that you place on them, change how they operate. So for example, like, a simple example is you get churches, but churches have a limited amount of capacity they can handle, unless you modify them to be gigantic, sprawling monstrosities. And it becomes the difference between like, here's a church with a bell tower and I'm just calling it a day, versus one that I just recently built because my population's starting to explode so much, where it has like, here's the core of it, and then there's an attachment, and then there's 2 gigantic wings. So versus the old church that I had in my major part of town, which could only handle 20 people, the new one can handle 80. And it's not a completely separate building. It's taking the church building and modifying and editing it and just attaching parts in ways that your church will look completely different from somebody else's. And that's neat. I love that. I love that level of customization. The way the game kind of deals with verticality as well. So like the map that I'm currently playing on has a lot of cliffs. And so I'm like, well, it'd be kind of neat if I built a fortress up on that cliff. And sure enough, I can do that. So I have a big like fortress overlooking my town. And yeah, like another example, like the thing I'm kind of working towards at the moment, there's a little island, like this really raised up cliff island. And I'm going to go and actually build like, currently I'm living in town, but it's like, hey, no, look, that's small time, right? Like I've got to have my own personal island at some point, right? And so I'll build like a castle and shit out there at some stage. But to get out there is this whole process of like, okay, well, in order to get to that island, I need to build this bridge, and it's going to cost a bunch of materials to build it. So I'm going to build a freaking town just to serve as like the construction workers to actually make my island fortress, essentially. And it's cool. It's really, really neat to do that sort of shit. like the game is incredibly good fun. It's like I said, it's still in early access, but developers are very, very active with it. I just lose time. It's like a time black hole. Before we were starting the podcast today, I sat down at like 5 p.m. and I'm like, cool, I have 2.5 hours. And then I looked at my watch and I'm like, oh, it's 7:45. I better get ready for podcast.
Nice. Start of a good game.
Yeah, it's very good. Can 100% recommend it. If you enjoy like city builders or town builders, it's very, very good. The other game that's good, but it's a very big but, is Watch Dogs Legion, which I've put 14 hours into and I haven't been able to play since it first came out. I think it's been 2 weeks since it came out.
So how many days worth of play did you get before things crapped out for you? And what actually happened?
About 3 days. Yeah. It was about 3 days of gameplay. So the game on PC released with a bunch of crash issues. And it uses this Ubisoft cloud save feature, which I don't think they've had in other games before. But the game, when you're playing it, if it suffers from a crash, corrupts the save file. Ooh. And then when you try to get back into the game, your save file will just infinitely load. Ooh. And so a bunch of people were like, I didn't do this because I was smart and I went and read up online. I'm like, cool, I'm not doing that. A bunch of people were like, oh, if you go and create a new save file, you can actually load back into your old one. So the whole game is all about like recruiting just people off the street. Like everybody on the street is recruitable. It's actually quite neat. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So you build up your team and everything, and it's why I'm attached to that save file. It's like I don't want to lose my cool team of people that I've built up. I'm attached to them now. But it turns out with this whole solution that people have to fix the corruption, so your save game gets corrupted, you go to make a new game, you exit during the tutorial, and then you can load your old save game again. But all of your characters are replaced by the one you play as in the tutorial. And basically, it just becomes a matter of like you have to get rid of all of them because they're all bugged. None of them have any sort of abilities or anything like that. And it's like that's shit. Like it basically the only way to recover it right now is to completely obliterate your entire team, and that doesn't even stop you from getting another bout of corruption because the game still has the crash issues. So yeah, it's messed up. They were meant to.
And your collection of characters is essentially your progress measure in a lot of ways as well, isn't it?
Yeah, because a lot of those characters, like, the best part of the game is being able to run around in this, it's like late 2020s, early 2030s London, and you're seeing these people on the street, and you're able to do the whole Watch Dogs thing where you can get like a portfolio, a profile of that person. Only in this one, you can then go and say, oh, cool, they're actually kind of neat. And they like DedSec, the hacker group that you work with. So you can just go and say, cool, I'm going to mark them to recruit them. And then you can actually find them later on and actually bring them into DedSec as an agent that you can then play as. And that is literally any character. Even the soldiers that you fight against, if you find one on a street corner that's just protecting it, even though he currently hates DedSec, you can convince him to work for DedSec, and then he doesn't lose his uniform or anything like that. He basically becomes an agent on the inside for you.
But I would assume that the one limitation would be named NPC antagonists. You don't see them on the street though. Like you might see them in a mission, but you're not going to see them on the street, which is where you get to do all your recruitment. It's where you spend like 95% of the game. Right.
Who's like Patient Zero then? Who's the first character you play as?
So the way the game starts off, you play this 007 agent kind of character doing the tutorial, but he gets killed at the end of the tutorial. Right. And it's basically, he's this really cool, like, look, you're going to be playing an MI5 agent by the end of this game, right? Like, you'll be able to recruit one, look at how cool they are, like, they do all this cool shit, and then they kill him off. And so the first character that you play as, the one that kind of starts it all, is actually your choice. So you get given a dossier of all of these different characters that are interested in DedSec, and basically you're making the decision as this NPC character that you don't actually meet in person and she's not playable. She chooses your first agent, so you choose as her. And so the first character that I put in, ironically, like the one that I was like, oh, he has some cool stuff, was a game developer. It's like this black game developer with a weird wiry mustache, and this really freaking awesome purple hoodie. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna recruit him. He's gonna be my first guy. And yeah, like you play as him and you start recruiting others. And the game will send you out in certain missions where it will be like, hey, so we need to get a construction worker to get into this site. And you can actually go in there in their construction worker uniform and nobody will question your being there because they're doing construction right now. And so you're like, cool, well, I'll go find a construction worker. And the game has a tutorial where it makes you recruit one, but it leaves it open to you. And so I was looking through all of these different characters and I'm like, cool, there's a 50-year-old woman construction worker. She's now going to be mine. And it turns out that was the best decision of my life because she's a fucking badass and I love her. Like, oh my God.
It seems like
so
in this game
fun.
they souped up the power level of anybody who's over 60.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. But also like all the characters have their own unique animations. So like a grandmother will walk differently from a police officer. But your police officer might walk differently from another police officer that's also white and in his 30s or whatever, because there's just unique animation sets the different characters have that kind of reflect their personality. And so like the construction worker lady that I'm talking about, like her fighting style, like their fighting styles are based around, like some of them have weapons. So she's got a nail gun. She's got like this gigantic metal wrench. And so whenever she gets into a melee, she beats the shit out of people with this gigantic metal wrench. And there's nothing more satisfying than like, I had this one mission where I was sneaking into this building and I'm in construction uniform. And I'm actually there to assassinate somebody that's like this hacker from another organization. And so I just walk in there, I'm in a construction worker outfit, so nobody's questioning my being there. Go into the room where this person is, beat the shit out of her with a wrench, walk out, and I could have just left, but I decided to kind of linger around and start getting collectibles that were in the building. Somebody found the body, and I got detected and get into a gigantic firefight where I'm like, oh God, please don't kill my awesome construction worker. And these people coming out with like, AR-15 assault rifles or whatever, and they're kitted out in bulletproof vests, and here 50-year-old construction worker beating the absolute loving shit out of them, and just like every single time she knocks somebody out, it's like this just the sound effects, the animations and everything, like it's just deeply satisfying.
I can picture it now.
They call me Bob. Bob Wire.
Oh, hang on. No, Barbed Wire is like an old comic book movie with Pamela Anderson in it, isn't it?
Yes, it
I'm
is.
now remembering this, yeah.
all over and done with, everything's dead around you, or at least knocked out around you. And it's like, holy shit, like it's so cool. I thoroughly love the game. I actually really enjoy it. It's possibly like, this is the thing that's going to suck later on this year when I'm choosing my games of the year, because like the game is good, but
it's broken to the point that you can't play it.
Broken as fuck. And like, I don't even know what's going to happen yet. Like I wouldn't be surprised at all if the announcement from Ubisoft, because the patch was supposed to come out to fix the save game issue like 2 days ago. And there's been no word. And so I can't help but feel like, okay, that's a bad sign. And is it going to come out and it's based like, yeah, so we can't actually fix all the issues. There will be some character loss. And that's going to be like, that sucks, right? Yeah. And so it's really hard to be like, this is a good game. It's a solid game. It's actually probably like, it's better than Watch Dogs 1. I don't know if it's better than Watch Dogs 2 yet. But I love the kind of emergent mechanics in recruiting these people with different personalities and different skills and such. But how can I look at that and go, this is a good game, and then ignore that experience I've had that's just deeply unpleasant? Now, I've not been able to play, it's a $90 game. I've not been able to play it for a week and a half, 2 weeks because of a save game issue.
Yeah.
Like, that's shit. That's pretty shit.
So
that's pretty shit.
Technical issues aside, one question I've been wanting to ask you all week after I heard that you'd been enjoying this, do you feel in a narrative sense that because you don't have any one character that the game is kind of written for in terms of like a story thread. Do you feel like the narrative is very floaty and discombobulated and that you're not really connected or invested in it in the way that you would with other games?
No. I actually feel the opposite. Right. I actually feel like so there's a mission where you have to go find this detective, and she's a written NPC, like she's not actually a randomly generated one. And I was like, cool. Well, which of my characters are going to be most interested in going on that mission to find her and save her? And so I actually did that mission as a police officer character, and it was great. And like, there's no direct references to the fact that he's a police officer. But then sometimes when he's walking around the street and he'll see somebody that's graffitiing a wall, and he'll have a piece of dialogue that's him speaking as a police officer about the fact that, these damn kids and, the graffiti and everything. But that could be potentially useful to DedSec, and that's just freaking awesome. Like, I love that. It kind of like, you made the choice to recruit this guy. And then he has interactions like that with the game world. But the narrative, like the way the story is kind of set up, is that all of the characters that you recruit get involved in those cutscenes. And so it's the entirety of DedSec that's actually interacting versus the way any game where you play a singular character is based like, you're the hero and you have to solve all our problems. Whereas with this, it's basically like, it's an organization, and they realize that, no one person can actually stop this. And so that's the way it's very much framed, is basically like, you're all DedSec agents. But the way they're all voice acted, and the fact that I haven't actually heard two characters that sound the same, and I have like 25 or so recruited characters. Like, there's nothing that really takes me out of that narrative. Mind you, I might run into something later on where it's basically like, okay, I'm kind of missing that. This isn't to say like, this completely replaces well-written individual characters. Absolutely not. It's just, it's a different story.
I think it sounds pretty interesting, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's something different.
Yeah, it's good to try something different like that in storytelling. I'd consider playing it. There's something about the setting that I actually find a little bit off-putting, like the masks and stuff. I feel like it's a bit like try hard, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah,
like with
that's just Watch Dogs, though. Yeah, that's
it's just Watch Dogs.
Yeah. I guess I've never played any of the Watch Dogs for that reason.
Look, that was more of a Watch Dogs 2 thing, to be fair, from what I understand. Yeah, that kind of became a thing.
You get to do fun shit, like my police officer character that I'm playing as has a pighead mask with a cigar. So.
But I was disappointed because I know that the you bought the new 3080 graphics card that apparently comes with a free copy of Watch Dogs Legion, but the 3070 doesn't. But maybe when yours eventually arrives, there could be some exchange of
possibly.
We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if the one that I got has the free Watch Dogs. It might, but yeah, if I get it, I'll definitely give it to you.
Because the redemption for it's through the NVIDIA GeForce Experience. You put your serial number in. I'm pretty sure all the 3080s should, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, one day, eventually,
2022
from now.
Yeah. All right, well, should we kick into some industry news then? Chat some stuff. So now, given that today is the 10th of November, just a few days prior, of course, was the 7th of November, otherwise known as N7 Day, which is the fairly frequently celebrated Mass Effect holiday. But did we actually have anything to celebrate this year, Matt?
Yes.
Yeah,
we did. So there's actually, I'm not going to say two things. It's more like 1.25 things, I guess. Mm-hmm. So the one thing is that the Mass Effect trilogy is getting a 4K 60 frames per second remaster,
which has been rumored for like 4 fucking years now. So they finally did it. Yeah.
So it's been rumored. There's been leaks. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's been coming out about it, which I'm like mega looking forward to, because like the Mass Effect trilogy, it's one of my favorites. But so it's called the Legendary Edition. It is meant to be coming out next year. They haven't given a specific timeline. We'll see if COVID makes that 2022. Let's hope not.
Can I just say, the one thing I'm looking forward to the most with that, out of anything else, is getting my kids to play Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially, like, the thing that I'm excited about is Mass Effect 1 is really inaccessible.
That's what I was going to mention.
Yeah, like the gameplay's solid, and it sets the foundation for 2 and 3. But it's just clunky, and I feel like there's a lot they can do there to actually make it better. But it depends on what level of remaster they're going for.
Well, one of the rumors I'd heard is that the Legendary Edition was supposed to come out this year, but they delayed it to work on Mass Effect 1 more.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, because 2 and 3 just need upgraded textures.
Yeah.
Like, and they're good to go, like 100%. That's easy.
Yeah.
Mass Effect 1 is the one that I would love to see, like, all of the freaking Mako planets and that sort of thing. Like, give them a makeover, you know, a makeover.
That was so unintentional and so perfect.
That was great. Nice. The words left my mouth, and I'm like, wait. Give them stuff to look at. You know, like it's not just like randomly generated noise map terrain. And then like the big one is basically, I think, making the skill system like a little bit less obtuse,
and the inventory management making it less clumsy.
Yeah, like if they can take stuff they did from 2 and 3 and kind of like gently inject that into Mass Effect 1 to make it more accessible, not completely remake it, but inject that in there to improve it. That's going to be incredible because like whenever I play the Mass Effect series, I always want to start with 1, and I always hate it. Well, not hate it, but it's clumsy. It's clumsy.
I think it's pretty important that they put that work in, hey, because for people who have already played the games, we'll be fine going through Mass Effect 1 again. But for people picking it up for the first time, 1 is a lot harder to get through as far as like user friendliness and accessibility goes. So absolutely. I hope that they pull that off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always found the trick with the first one to be like it's one of those things where it's like a huge, thriving and heavily detailed world, which once you actually sort of come to terms with all the different alien species and races and how they interact and their different biologies and that kind of stuff, it's immensely like absorbing material to get into. But the learning curve of that content is quite steep initially because it involves a lot of character interactions, a lot of reading of lore types, tabs, and that sort of thing. That until you sort of have that, you don't have that connection that you have later on in the series. But once you can get over that hump, it's fucking sweet. So
I feel
all the storytelling, I think, is fine. Like all the stuff in the Citadel at the start is all fine. It's the systems that when you're actually interacting with the game systems that needs reworking.
Yeah.
I would always go so far as to say like a lot of the side mission stuff where it's like, you know, here's the billionth mission in this room that I've seen before. Yeah. Oh, look, they've put barrels in front of that door. Wow. What a difference. You know, like that sort of shit could use a change, right? Like adding some variety in there would do huge amounts for the game. Because nobody's going to care. Like, nobody's going to care, like, oh, this mission had its freaking rooms changed. What the hell? Like, I remember there's one on the moon that's actually quite a cool mission, but then it deflates entirely where it's like, I've been in this interior 50 times before in this game already. But yeah, other than the Mass Effect trilogy getting remasters, we got an announcement that they are working on a brand new Mass Effect game by an old team that worked on Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. So it's not a brand new team or anything like that. But I put this is the one that's the 0.25 part of the good news, because who the fuck knows when we're going to see anything of that, right? Like, this was a statement. There was no trailer. There was no teaser. It was basically like, and we're working on something new. And it's like, cool. Yeah. That may never actually happen.
It reminds me of, remember that E3 where they announced a Star Wars game by like interviewing somebody in the audience?
That was Vince Zampella. They actually that was Fallen Order.
The
first time we heard that.
That casual way of just like, oh, by the way, we're also making a new game in this series. It's very.
They did the exact same thing again, EA and Star Wars, where they were doing the bounty hunter game. I forget what it's called, but that one got cancelled, right? Like they announced that also quietly, but we did actually see a trailer for it before it was destroyed. Yeah, I won't be confident that we're actually getting a new Mass Effect game until I actually see a trailer and a probable release date.
Very important question for you two, though. When it comes to an actual new proper mainline Mass Effect game, would you prefer A, a sequel to Andromeda, B, another sequel or sort of in the line of the existing trilogy, like following on from that storyline, or C, something completely new that is not a prequel, but something that is linked but another offshoot in a weird direction?
For me, it's definitely B, depending on what you mean exactly. Like, I don't want the literal same characters to continue from Mass Effect trilogy, but I want the game to be set in that solar system with familiar landmarks and stuff.
The complication with B, of course, being how do they deal with the ending and what that means for the whatever game comes next. Because
which is obviously
the universe could be in a lot of different shapes. So
which is why Andromeda was Andromeda, because they had that problem. But I think that they need to figure out a solution to that. Either choose a canonical ending or just like find some weird way of doing it, because I didn't play Andromeda, so maybe I'm wrong, but I got the impression all the coverage I saw, I didn't feel attached to it. Like I didn't want to go and play it and reconnect with the Mass Effect universe because it felt too disconnected. So the next one has to hit those buttons that pull me back in and make me feel connected to that universe again.
Yeah. Christian, have you still to date not played Andromeda?
No.
You should.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is actually quite good.
Okay.
Like it's better than Mass Effect 1 good, put it that way.
Yeah,
right?
I'd
Mass
agree.
Effect 1 is still a good game. It's
just
I would actually,
you'll be able to go in now with the correct expectations.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll play it before the next Mass Effect game comes out.
Cool.
Who knows when?
Yeah.
But I would actually agree with Christian. I think the big problem I had with Andromeda was that they so you say, Luke, a Mass Effect 1 is kind of hard to get into because there's all this stuff that they set up for this universe. But then Mass Effect 3 ends with them nuking the shit out of that universe. And so Andromeda kind of picks up and it's like, oh, we have some of that stuff you cared about back, but it sets up this new, vastly emptier universe that just doesn't, it never has that moment that clicks. I want them to do with Mass Effect what Halo Wars did with Halo, where Halo Wars doesn't follow anything about what happened in the mainline games. They actually start off before Halo 1 and send the characters off to this completely different part of the galaxy where they run into a lot of the same issues and a lot of the same threats, completely separated from everything else. But it's still the same universe. It's still the same characters that you care about and everything. And the stuff, it has relevance to what takes place.
So you want a halfway Andromeda is what you're kind of saying.
Not like Andromeda's fully removed, right? Like Halo Wars,
not fully.
It is fully removed. It's got the same races, but there's nothing else in common.
I disagree. I think there are some plot lines that hark back to stuff that happened in the main universe, but there's
Halo Wars is setting up the story for Halo Infinite, right? Like you're not going to see Andromeda doing that. Like Andromeda has nothing to do with the rest of the Mass Effect trilogy, other than references to the Mass Effect trilogy, right? Like it's just so far removed from it. Whereas I feel like a game, like it's a fucking sci-fi game, right? In fact, right, when we talk about canonical endings, we know for a fact that somebody is telling the story of Shepard. So pick up from that point. Like, tell us what happened. Like, you don't have to be, like, it can be mythology, right? It's the same species and everything like that, but the universe, something happened to it. We don't know what. That was 5,000 years ago, right? And it's about the survivors or something. Like, there's so many ways that they can approach that problem, and they don't have to leave the galaxy to do it. I think there's way, way more interesting ways to go about it. Or they do what everybody was saying they should do in the first place when before Andromeda was announced, and they go with the Turian War. where the first conflict war, like that would be fantastic to follow.
Okay.
And like we don't have to deal with the fact that the universe ends or anything like that. That's a more satisfying story to go into. We get to learn more about those characters and the universe that we love in a timeline that's a bit more attached. Yeah. Rant over.
I'm actually different to you guys. I want a sequel to Andromeda, straight up, because I don't want to touch the existing sort of trilogy's setting at all anymore. I want it left as is, because I think that the state that you leave it in is perfect, like for your experience with it. And I think that Andromeda has some really cool story leads that they don't fully capitalize on, especially towards the end, that I would love to see built into a sequel. So yeah, there's some good shit there. I think there's some really...
You're dreaming if you think that Mass Effect Andromeda 2 was coming out off the back of the reception of Andromeda 1.
I don't
never
think
going to happen.
Branded they would ever call it Mass Effect Andromeda 2, but I don't think there's anything preventing them from leading off from stuff that happened in Andromeda. So
they could, like, if they made Andromeda a more interesting universe, a more interesting galaxy to be in, maybe. But the fact that
the ship has sailed.
Yeah, the ship has sailed, and they've got more to work with from the original Mass Effect trilogy, way more to work with, even if it's after the game has ended. And I don't think they will. I don't think they will do it after the game has ended. I think they'll focus on a smaller conflict before Mass Effect 1. Because I think that part of the universe is ripe for content, right?
Smaller is good.
Yeah.
It'd be good for them to wind it back to basics and just produce something small and good. Yeah,
it'll be
absolutely
fascinating to see what they land on. Anyway, I think it'll be really interesting. But Christian, what do you got for us tonight?
Yes, I just wanted to briefly talk about backwards compatibility with the upcoming consoles, particularly with regards to PlayStation 5, because Sony has been pretty crap in how they've actually communicated the backwards compatibility. We thought at first that it was going to be like a select number of games. Like there was some confusion over one of Mark Cerny's presentations. He mentioned like the top 100 games, but that was only for like their internal like testing. But then in the end, pretty much the entire catalog is fully backwards compatible, other than a very small list of games, none of which are particularly popular games. And that was known for a little bit, but then just since reviewers have got their hands on the actual consoles, they've been able to test the performance of the backwards compatibility. There's a really good half-hour video by Digital Foundry where they cover it in very good detail. Those guys are really thorough in their testing of like frame pacing and like micro stutter and that sort of stuff, HDR implementation. And the actual performance is pretty solid, pretty awesome. There's a surprising number of PlayStation 4 games that run at 60, that a surprising number that had uncapped frame rates that hit like a very, very firm, solid 60. And it doesn't have I know Xbox Series X has broader backwards compatibility. They've got compatibility through to the OG Xbox. And they also have the auto HDR, where Xbox has their backwards compatible titles. They have like a pretty clever way of automatically implementing decent HDR. The Digital Foundry guys cover that like PlayStation 5 does have some form of auto HDR, but it uses something called tone mapping that's not as like effective as the Xbox one. Because I hadn't realized that if you have a HDR capable TV, all of your output on PlayStation 5 will all be in HDR. So it's not like PlayStation 4 where once you start an HDR application, it'll flip into HDR. The screen kind of flashes and you go HDR. The entire experience will be HDR on the next gen consoles. But yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised with how good the performance is for a lot of the PlayStation 5 titles.
Yeah.
4 titles.
I'm actually looking forward to playing a few of my PS4 games again on PS5 for a little bit, just to sort of see. I have decided, since we spoke about it last week, and one of my outstanding things from the existing generation was finishing off the last couple of trophies in God of War. I'm actually going to do that on PS5 because I want to see how that game performs.
Yeah, that's 60 frames, solid 60 frames a second. So on God of War, as opposed to, there's just 30 normally. And is a bunch of games. Like they go through a list of probably 20, 30 games. There's some weird things like Dark Souls 3 has 60 FPS, but like Bloodborne is still 30. I know a lot of people wanted Bloodborne to be 60, but that's still 30. They talk about knack and how they get like knack runs at 60, and one of like that was like supposed to be this showcase of the like physics calculations and stuff on PlayStation 4, but it didn't run very well, but now it finally does. Yeah, and like the Assassin's Creed games at 60, and just lots of stuff, the Far Cry games, and it seems like it will be a really good place to play the old PlayStation 4 games.
Yeah, which is cool, and a lot of them are actually coming to PS Plus as well. There's like a collection.
They got that instant collection. It's 20, I think.
Yeah.
But they're 20 decent PS4 games, but. Yeah,
I did see some pretty good PS Plus games coming in November. Actually, did you guys realize that we get if we're PS Plus subscribers, we get Bug Snacks for free? I didn't realize that.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's
cool.
decent. Yeah.
I love the fact that we finally hit a point in the console generation where people give enough of a shit about backwards compatibility that it's just like there's real effort going into it. Like the fact that the Series X has such backwards compatibility, and the fact that I can go grab that console and then boot up Viva Pinata, which I haven't played in fucking yonks. Like, holy shit. Like, that actually makes me tempted to buy it. The same goes for the PS5, right? Like, I love the fact that we've got that level of backwards compatibility now. Like, that's just awesome. I love it.
Viva Pinata, holy shit.
About Nintendo.
That game's a blast from the past. I remember when that first came out.
Oh, fuck
that thing was a fucking smash hit.
I'm pretty sure Viva Pinata is what put me on my Stellaris crack path of life.
Mm-hmm. Viva Pinata, no kidding, might be the only Xbox exclusive I've played.
Really?
Yeah,
but I loved it. Game. I love Viva Pinata. It was fantastic.
It's such a good game. Sequel to Viva Pinata.
We'll get onto that later, Matt.
So I think it's good news. Yeah, Xbox definitely has the broader backwards compatibility, and their performance is great too, the backwards compatibility. I think people were just relieved to hear how good the PlayStation 5 one was, because there was a bit of uncertainty there.
Yeah.
It's so weird they didn't talk it up.
Yeah.
Like maybe they didn't know what they were going to be able to achieve until the console was right about out. Maybe. I think it's just
they wanted to be
strange.
certain. I think they just wanted to be absolutely certain. As to the standard,
it's certainly possible that because like Xbox is old hat at this now, right? Like the Xbox One had really good backwards compatibility with the 360. I don't know if it had original Xbox.
It did, in some cases. Yeah. Okay. It was a list of games that they continually added to as time went on. Yeah, but so they're all had at this. It's all on the same system and everything like that. They're probably using the exact same code bases and everything, but for the PlayStation, it's probably new, and so it probably is a matter of them, being a little bit uncertain for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of weird and wonderful things, I've got a bit of more of an oddball story for my contribution to our news this week. So, you guys remember Twitch plays Pokemon, right? That phenomenon.
Goldfish plays Street Fighter. And
Yep.
Everything.
So, along those lines, we've got a very similar thing that's actually just hit the news in this last week or so. So, basically, we've had Twitch sort of plays Pokemon, and now we've got Fish plays Pokemon. And I'm not talking about some guy trying to go through all of Pokemon with, like, a Magikarp and beating the Elite Four with a Magikarp and all that sort of shit. I mean, like, someone who is not Rudism has actually mapped a fucking controller to a fish tank and had real live fish actually play Pokemon, and they have beaten 3 of the Pokemon games now. So just by swimming around in the tank with some motion tracking. So the way it works is they've actually got the fish tanks mapped with the directional arrows as well as the A and the B buttons, and the fish swims into a button's mapped area, and that activates the buttons in game. And they've even got it so that, to keep the fish healthy, they actually swap them out every 12 hours so they don't die in the tank, sort of thing. And because if you die in the game, you die in real tank or something. I don't know. The channel that's been doing this is called Mutakimaru channel, and they've been letting the fish play the games in an ongoing stream. They've literally just beaten the Hoenn region champion in the 3rd game, and they're trying to find the hidden Pokemon, the legendaries in the post game at the moment. So, but this this is 100% the million monkeys with a million typewriters will eventually churn out like, Shakespeare kind of approach. It's hilarious.
I'm sorry though, Luke, you're wrong. They haven't actually beat Pokemon.
No, that's true.
They haven't caught them all.
Yeah.
They haven't caught them all.
Yeah.
Fuck you, fish.
Yeah. That's it. The game doesn't end when you beat the Elite Four. You have to you have to catch all the votes. I mean, Pokemon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. But it's hilarious. It's just another one of those weird and wacky things that on one hand we're moving into next gen, and on the other hand we've got fish beating fucking video games. So
one of my favorite ones of those was Twitch plays Flight Sim. Because it's just a hilarious mental image of like 100 people in the cockpit of a plane trying to fly it.
Oh god.
And like it's actually really amusing because like you compared to the other ones where you see a lot of people that are like just trying to throw a spanner in the works, right? Like that you quite often actually see in the Twitch plays Flight Sim. They work together. It's like, okay, we've got to land. So flaps down, like they're planning it out in the chat. It's great. I love the Twitch play stuff.
I would imagine that being almost like pilot and co-pilot have a heart attack simulator. See what the rest of the plane does.
I just had to Google it to check because I thought that I'd seen this, but Fish Plays Pokemon, there was actually another one way back in 2014 that they had a Fish Plays Pokemon, but I was wondering if that was like the same fish that took 6 years, but it wasn't.
No.
Apparently that one from 2014, the fish got to like Viridian City, and then it for months just did not go anywhere. I think like maybe the setup that they had wasn't as well designed as this more recent one, but they ended up just stopping it because the fish was it couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's
These
hilarious.
are well-trained fish.
Yeah. The fish are getting smarter. Oh my God.
You could say their previous experiment just tanked. So anyway. I think that joke just tanked. Anyway, so let's move into our third and final segment for tonight. So we thought that looking to this week being the kickoff of next-gen consoles, in fact, Xbox Series X is out as of today in Australia and around the world, pretty much right now, I think, for all the other countries. So we're in it now, and we can look ahead. We can stop looking back. We're actually in, the future now. The future is now. So let's actually start talking about what the heck we want out of this fandangled new future that we've got. So tonight, we're going to do a bit of a next-gen wishlisting discussion. So what do we actually hope is going to be on the horizon in the next generation? And that could be, the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We don't quite know. We don't know whether we're going to have this weird kind of half-step generation again as well. And this incorporates, of course, the Switch sort of being in the middle of its current generation cycle too. And whatever craziness Nintendo is going to lead off that with. So we're in this space now where this next block of time, we want to sort of think about what do we actually, as gamers and as people who are enthusiasts for the industry as a whole, actually, what do we want out of it? So that's not necessarily just games. It could be, what trends do we want to see, like whether they're new or continuing trends. What new genres do we might want to see, returning or kicking off for the very first time. What the heck do we want, basically? So I will throw over to one of you guys to kick us off tonight. What do you want the most out of next-gen gaming at this point? Besides a Watch Dogs that works.
I will fall back to possibly the last episode or the episode before that, where I said that in some ways I find myself becoming like a gaming conservative, where for me personally, what I want from the PlayStation 5, at least, from the PlayStation 5, I want the same thing as the PlayStation 4 and the same thing as the PlayStation 3. For that console, I want just continued great exclusives from Sony. I do want some of the studios to shake things up a bit. Like I would like Naughty Dog to try something new. Like I want Naughty Dog to get off the cinematic, crazy high fidelity, but hyperlinear single player game. I want them to try something different. Mm-hmm. But I feel like a lot of the other studios are putting out new and interesting games. Like we had Horizon and Ghost and Marvel Spider-Man this generation. So some sequels to those, like we're seeing, will be good. I want to see continued support from a lot of Japanese studios for the PlayStation 5. And so I really don't want much to change there. I don't think I want a new PlayStation VR. I think I'm fine just not having a console VR headset for a good while. I think that PC can own that space, and maybe in 10 years or something, we can get another console VR. But I don't think I want Sony to invest resources in a PSVR 2. As far as like Xbox goes, I think that what they're doing with Game Pass is fantastic, and I hope they continue that. I hope that the price of Game Pass doesn't go up too much. I hope that the business model works out how it seems to be working out, and that it is successful for them, because it does seem to be at the moment. But yeah, that's my quick overview of what I want from the two main players, at least, is what we're seeing, really. Yeah.
Broad brushstrokes, Matt. What do you think?
I'm gonna rattle off the ones that are obvious. Viva Pinata. The other one I know that everyone's probably gonna expect me to mention is game developers to unionize. Like way past you. Like, come on, let's get on that. But in terms of like the actual industry, like I'm not gonna jump into the unionization stuff, because that's a conversation I've had a billion times before. I want to see. I made the joke before, but it's a half serious joke, because I think at the end of the day, it's actually what I want to see, and it's more collaboration between the big three, so Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft.
We've had a bit of that in the last few years. Actually, it's been interesting. Yeah. But
you might recall like my joking prediction about E3 that we were going to see Philip Spencer get up on the stage at Nintendo and announce Game Pass for the Nintendo Switch. I actually do want to see that. Like, quite genuinely, I would love to see games that have typically been stuck on one console actually getting elsewhere. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see titles that were purely PlayStation exclusives are now cropping up on Steam. Like,
let me interject with a related question, because I think this is a good time to kind of ask this with how things are going. Like, when we saw Xbox One and PS4 release, those consoles pretty much were head to head in terms of the market audience they were going for, competing for everybody's mind share in exactly the same ways. There wasn't a lot of difference between those two consoles at all at launch. Okay. But now we've got this situation where the value proposition for Series X versus PS5, and everything else that comes with them, like your Game Pass stuff, Sony's first party library that has got this huge caliber that Xbox doesn't. They're very, very different things, very, very different audiences, and they're kind of targeting different stuff. And they're competing less in the way that Nintendo doesn't really compete with either of them as much anymore either. So do you think that with less of that sort of like-for-like competition and them kind of diverging and doing their own things now, that there's a much better chance of that occurring, that what you're after?
Yeah, like, I actually, I've said this before, I think, as well, that Microsoft don't want to compete on consoles anymore. Like, I'm pretty sure they've actually given up on that. Like, the Series X, when you actually talk about hardware specs, is actually slightly more powerful than the PlayStation 5, but who gives a shit? Like, you're not going to see the difference. Like, there's not going to be a game that comes out on the Series X and the PlayStation 5 that has such a massive difference that it's going to matter anyway.
But you've also got the weird off step of that, where their digital edition is nowhere near as powerful as their other one.
It's weird.
And with PlayStation, that's not the case. So
yeah, the Series X is slightly, like, very slightly, like I say, to the point that it doesn't matter. But what they're looking to do, like, I'm pretty sure Microsoft's game here is basically, well, we need a console to kind of be the flagship here. But I fully expect that there could be another console generation, and the only people that will have consoles in it will be Nintendo and PlayStation. Because they're fulfilling different needs in the industry now, right? Like, PlayStation, you get for that high fidelity gaming experience where, it's all about the incredible visuals, right? Like, that is literally what Sony has kind of leaned into. Whereas Microsoft's going for Game Pass, and Nintendo is going for fun family handheld shit, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think it's a positive and healthy thing. Like, Nintendo figured out ages ago that they needed to set themselves aside from what Sony and Microsoft were doing. And I think that the competition between the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One was a wake-up call for Microsoft that they shouldn't try to compete with Sony in that respect, because they didn't understand the market as well as Sony did.
But do you think that with some less competition in that regard and less of the conflict that comes with it, that we might, by extension, see less of that innovation and creativity as a result because they're not forced to do it?
I think that like Microsoft still has to compete with Stadia and everything. And mind you, there's not a lot of competition there, but people will try to get into that marketplace.
If we were going to see less innovation, we'd be seeing less innovation with Nintendo already.
That's true.
Yeah. They've already cornered that market. But like they want to sell new consoles. They're competing with themselves. Like if they weren't innovating, they wouldn't sell new consoles. And so they have to innovate. They have to do better. There has to be a reason for people to get excited about the new stuff rather than, hey, it's the Nintendo Switch 2. It's in new colors. Like nobody's gonna. Well, no, people will definitely go out and buy that with the Nintendo Switch. Bad example. But yeah. The
analogy I draw is like Xbox is going for the Netflix thing, whereas Sony is going for gold class cinema, or like going out to the movies. Like it's more expensive. You're paying a lot. You're more for one movie, but you're enjoying you're getting more out of that one experience, sort of thing. But I, in preparation for this week, I actually went back and I listened at the start of the year. We had an episode of like 2020 predictions, and because we thought maybe the consoles were going to be out earlier in the year, we talked about some of this stuff, what we were predicting, not wish list, but what we were actually expecting to happen with the consoles, and touching on some of the same stuff here.
Like I feel like the other comparison I draw, and it's not a great one, but I actually would point out like how Google handles their phones versus how Apple handles their phone, right? Where Google is basically like, here's our stuff, put it on your platform. You make the hardware, you deal with it. I could see Microsoft doing that. So it's like the Xbox is not hardware anymore; it's Game Pass, right? And so Game Pass can technically be on anything, whereas Sony is more akin to Apple, where it's like you buy that because it's their hardware, right? Like it's their one controlled thing that they put a lot of effort into. And so it's a very different kind of marketplace, but it's also gaming where you have exclusives and that sort of thing. I think that we're still going to see exclusives, and I actually don't want to see exclusives go away. I think exclusives typically are pretty good for developers. What I want to see is more timed exclusives. So not like it's on the PlayStation forever, but it's on the PlayStation for now, but eventually it's going to be on PC, or eventually it's going to be on the Xbox Series X or whatever.
Yeah.
I definitely want to see more of that. But I think that there's a potential for more cooperation. Nintendo and Microsoft have been cooperating a lot. Like we're seeing that now. I feel like one of the predictions I made earlier in the year, again joking, was that we would get Minecraft Steve in Smash, and then that happened. I see them cooperating. I don't know about Sony. I think that Sony is still not going to cooperate so much. I don't think we're going to see crossplay for a long time with PlayStation consoles, like between like Xbox and PlayStation or that sort of thing. But maybe before the end of the generation, like that would be a huge thing if it happens. But I hope it does. Like that's what we're talking about today.
I think it'll continue to be driven by consumer demand as well as their position in the market. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of soul searching about this question as to sort of what are the big trends that I want to see in next gen as a wish listing item for me, and to kind of consider, I look back on the last sort of 5 to 7 years of stuff that I've played that I've spent the most amount of time in and that I've enjoyed the most, to see if I could find some clues there. And I think I've actually settled on something that surprised me, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. What I really want to see in the next gen is less releases and more development. What I mean by that is I don't necessarily want to see sequels of some of my favorite franchises or titles, or even sort of entirely new games, so much as I actually would like more studios to spend more time on existing titles to continue to improve and iterate on them. And some of the examples that I think really drove this home for me is that, like, a list of some of the stuff that I've enjoyed the most over the last generation. Destiny 2, great example. Fucking Minecraft, hello, another good one. Just recently, I've gotten right back into No Man's Sky. That is possibly the poster child of what can happen when a game is not given up on and actually continues to be developed and iterated on. And I wouldn't say that Minecraft is necessarily... I mean, by the strictest definition, maybe it is a live service game, but I certainly don't consider it in the same bucket that I'd consider your typical live service games. And Minecraft as well, for that matter. Games like I don't actively play this, but I appreciate the shit out of it, and the bare fact that they've not let it die and they've continued to work on it and add stuff to it means that I might at some point. Sea of Thieves, another good example. I would go back and play Sea of Thieves purely because of the fact that it's not a one and done game now. It's actually had a whole bunch of love and attention sort of added to it over time. Grand Theft Auto Online, holy shit, that's a good example. You know, I love GTA 5. GTA Online did not release in the greatest of states. The amount of stuff they've added to that game over time is fucking insane. And obviously, you know, it's been financially successful for them as a result. But one of the things that keeps coming back to me time and time again is that I love to see payoff for my time investment when it comes to playing games like this. And I know that that time investment is going to be paid off if the game doesn't die. Like if the game continues to live on and have stuff added to it and give me repeated reasons to go back and play it. Because then everything that I've done in that game before still means something. It's not on my shelf or on my Steam library just forgotten about forever. Like I'll never touch it again. Like I continue to go back in and enjoy those games, not just for the experience that it will be at the time that I go back and play it, but also because I'm building on a legacy of stuff that I've done in those games. And I value that probably more than anything, I'm realizing. So I want to see them... Warframe, another great example. Warframe wouldn't be the game that it is, and I would have had the enjoyment that I had out of that if it hadn't been for the fact that it's been built on and iterated on over so much time. So rather than having this sort of ongoing sort of serialization, sequelization approach of new game from this franchise every single year or every other year, like your Far Cry's and your Assassin's Creeds, although Assassin's Creed's had a pretty good recent run, so it's maybe not the best example anymore. But some of your typical ones, like all of your sports franchises, your Call of Duties, your Battlefields, all that sort of shit. Fuck all that off. Pick one or two and just keep building on them. That's what I want to see. I don't know how likely that is in terms of the next generation, because I think that there's always going to be this ravenous appetite for new and fresh is better. But like, I often think about the amount of development effort that they could put into some of these games. Given that they've got solid foundations to build on, they could save on a lot of the work that they would do to build something from scratch. And they have an existing player base potentially where if they pick the right battles, they could actually have some really good successes with this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I don't know if they will. Like I think most of the games that it would work with are probably already getting it to a certain extent, but who knows if there's going to be more in the next few years. I want more games to last for a longer time is what I really, really want. So
I could not disagree more.
Yeah?
Personally. Yeah, just like I've talked about my taste in games before. I like a complete product that I purchase, I play till the credits, and then I'm done. Like that's my ideal way of playing games. And I'm not a big online gamer. I don't like feeling like I'm playing a product that's going to be better later, and I'm missing out on having a poorer experience because I'm playing it early. I don't like to feel like there's a time commitment that I need to play some content now. It's going to go away later, or I don't like any of that. I just like playing a game start to finish, like reading a book, like watching a movie. It's there, it's done. That's what I enjoy. With there are limited exceptions, but I usually only have time for one exception at a time. So it was Hearthstone, now it's Destiny 2. For a brief period, it was Warframe, but they're the exception that kind of prove the rule. Where for the most part, I'm just about the single experience. Where I would like to see that are in those few IPs that you mentioned that do really annualize and don't innovate, but they're not games I typically play. Like if Call of Duty became a platform, if it was just Call of Duty and that was a live service experience, that'd be good. Those sports games, that'd be good because they are truly grindy and annualized in their development.
Yeah.
But I feel like the kind of games that I'm playing and enjoying, they're not coming out every year and getting repetitive. Like So
I'm not saying I want this stuff at the expense of not having new releases that are self-contained.
well, it's always an opportunity cost, right? Like if they're always making that instead of something else.
I guess what I want this instead of something else for, the instead of is I don't want these. Okay, Marvel's Avengers is a pretty good example. So rather than coming out with this half-baked sort of, wishy-washy game as a service model, which isn't going to have legs, we've seen that, what did Square Enix lose? Like 64 million, sorry.
No, it was 64 billion yen.
Billion, yeah, okay, all right. That a shit ton of money on the release of that, and they only sold like 3 million copies of the actual physical game. That resource, that development resource, could have been spent on something better than this thing that isn't going to have legs, and they're never going to come back to that. So,
but wouldn't your argument there have been that they should have just made that a good live service game then?
My argument for that would hold true if they continue working on it from this point and actually turn it into a good game. I don't think that they will in this one case. I think that it will be abandoned. I don't think they're going to do an Anthem on it. And even I think Anthem remains to be seen. So
that's a good example, like, of an interesting game that represents our division, where that comes out. It's kind of halfway between. It's got a single player campaign and a shitty live service. You might say they should put the time in, commit to it, make it a good live service game. I'd say just have the single player campaign. Like,
yeah,
kind of
if they had released just that and committed to that in the first place, I think we both would have been happy. Or they. I guess the test now will be what happens from this point onwards. Like, if they double down and actually make this a really good game over the next few years, which I think is extremely unlikely, then sure. But I think that the effort would have been better spent sort of just getting the single-player game in a shortened form out the door and then moving on to the next thing and putting that development resource towards something entirely different. So,
I fall quite literally right in the middle where I want to see less live service games. I'm fucking sick and tired of them.
It's not just about live service games, though. Like, I gave a few examples that weren't live service. So
I wasn't finished. I want to see more games getting that post-release support, right? Because what I would love to have seen, like, we're talking about Avengers. I would love to have seen Avengers come out as a single-player game that is, solid, and then get the post-release support as though it were a live service game, right? Like, give me more Avengers content, add more Avengers in there that I can actually play through. Like I feel like certain games that system works really, really well. Like, Spider-Man is a great example, right? Like, if you had Spider-Man and then, hey, we're going to release Spider-Man Miles Morales, but it's just in Spider-Man, right? You're still paying the same amount of money for Miles Morales, but it's actually a brand new campaign. It follows a brand new story. Like, it's another 8 hours of content, but it exists within Spider-Man, right? Like, I think that would actually be really, really cool. And that's essentially what we almost have gotten. It's just a separate box release.
We'll see. But, we'll find out later this week.
Yeah.
Or I will.
Well, from all the reviews I've read, that seems to be what we've gotten. It's more Spider-Man. So, like, I want to see more of that, and I feel like what we're basically talking about here is a return to expansions. Like,
I would love that.
Yeah, like a return to, because, like, one of my favorite things about Stellaris is the fact that I play the shit out of it. It's like, cool, that was a great experience. And then 6 months or 8 months or 1 year later, they're like, here's a brand new expansion. It's like, oh, cool, it's more of that game that I love.
Stellaris is kind of the perfect example for you of this.
Yeah. And so, like, I can imagine with a lot of games, I would like to see that, but I wouldn't want to see that with my Uncharted, for example, right? My linear narrative story game, I don't want to see a bunch of additional content strapped on because it's typically not that interesting if they do that. Like, I want it to be a one and done story. I've played through it, I've ended it, cool, put it down, right? Whereas Spider-Man, it's an open world. Like, it's open for expansion. You can't really expand on a linear story without leaving it as a to be continued or the next thing being like a sub chapter or a mini thing. Like,
I think
they can do that, but
the difference though between a game like Uncharted or any of the Uncharted's and something like Control or Ghost of Tsushima is that Control and Ghost both have those sort of constantly sort of able to dip back in and navigate around worlds by actually having a map as part of the integral core of the game, whereas Uncharted isn't. Like, it's a cinematic experience.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So I something like Lost Legacy, if Uncharted actually worked on a system where they had like a map and you navigated around to different interactions within the game, Lost Legacy could have easily worked within the framework of Uncharted without having to release as a separate thing. And I would have been totally fine with that. I think that would have been great. But
I feel like the thing is though, like Uncharted's a different experience, right? Like it's like what we're talking about here is the difference between going and seeing a really good movie and going and seeing a really good series, right? Like, there's some series that you want to see continue on. There's other things that you're like, cool, that was a great experience. I can't wait until the sequel. And like, I feel like some franchises fall into that latter category, right? Like, I just recently watched Knives Out. If you haven't seen Knives Out, go watch it because it's a fucking great movie. Would I want that as a Netflix series? God, no. Because I love the production value that it had as a one and done thing. But do I want a sequel? Hell yes. Like, I want to see Knives Out too, right?
Okay.
But I kind of see the same thing. Like, you have to make the same comparison with some games in the gaming industry where, like, Destiny is my Netflix series versus Uncharted, which is my Knives Out, right? Like, going and seeing that in the cinema and then putting it down. It's a weird line to draw because it does blur, right? Yeah. If the next Uncharted is open world, then fuck yes, bring on all the expansions for it because I'm totally for that. I just think that some games definitely lend themselves better to that system than others. But I don't think that's what you were saying either. I don't think you were saying that all of them have to be this way.
No, I think between the three of us, we've kind of got some consensus with what I was trying to say. Obviously, we all have our individual preferences, but just to kind of summarize where I sit is I feel like I've got enough movies to choose from at the moment. I want more good Netflix series as an option. Yeah. So it's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
One of the things I did for this topic was I looked back at like the top games from the PS3 and Xbox 360 generation that didn't get an entry in this generation just gone, and like ones that I'd like to see come back in the future.
Ooh, cool.
I mean, some of them are unlikely to come back for like studio has closed or licensing reasons or whatever, but just wishlisting. I'd like to see like a good BioShock game or some other Shock game, like a System Shock or something. Difficult for that to happen because of Irrational Games folding.
Warren Spector was working on a new System Shock at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, that got I think cancelled.
Okay.
So a BioShock, I'd like to see one come through. A Dead Space, Visceral Games closed. EA, I'm sure, still has the IP for that. I'd like to see a new Dead Space come. We didn't get an Elder Scrolls this gen. We know there's one in development, but that'll be nice to see. A Silent Hill game would be nice.
Just Konami's entire catalog getting bought up by somebody who's actually competent would be nice. Yeah.
I was also going to mention one of my favorite games of all time, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I'd like to see either a sequel or a remaster of that game because that didn't get any love this generation, and I feel like it could do well getting a sequel or something. I also feel like that's got a kind of unique selling point for Metal Gear fans in that it was never a Kojima game to start with.
That's
like
Platinum,
the original,
isn't it?
Platinum, yeah, and like Kojima kind of hand-wavingly gave his blessing to it because he was still at Konami at the time, but he wasn't involved in the development of that game at all. So I can see people giving it more of a pass than if they tried to make Metal Gear Solid 6 because it wasn't a Kojima game to start with. So
yeah. If I was to name sort of like the top 3 titles linked to franchises that I really want to see in the next generation, my 3 would probably be I really want the next God of War to fucking kick ass. Like, that's one of my highest hopes. I hope that God of War Ragnarok is just the shit. I really want that game to be good. Secondly, I really want Metroid Prime 4 to not suck. I want it to be good. I want them to shit the bed. Yeah, exactly. I think that one for me is a little bit more like God of War Ragnarok, I'm pretty confident it's going to be a good game, right? Like, I think we can be reasonably sure that it's going to be decent. Metroid Prime 4 is a big unknown at the moment. Like, that seems very high risk to me in terms of its development not being smooth up until this point. They've had a restart. God knows where the game's at this point. We literally know nothing. So I think that makes me nervous, and I hope that it's good and not... I don't think they're rushing it. I think they're going to take their time with it, but I'm very tentative in terms of being confident about what that actually ends up being.
I would be more confident in Metroid Prime 4 if Star Fox Zero didn't exist.
That's possible.
Because I feel like Star Fox Zero is a high profile case of Nintendo reviving an old series and it like flopping. So that kind of scares me.
But my third one to add to the list, which is a recent addition, and also I think time-wise due to, I think if you look at the number of years between them, we should have a decent chance of getting one this gen. I really, really want to see what a Persona 6 looks like. I would be very down for checking out something like that. I know we've got Shin Megami Tensei coming first. Five, yep. And I'm sure that'll be awesome. But from what I understand of that series versus Persona, it's not quite the same thing. And I think I'm definitely more down for a Persona style game.
I don't know how you might be waiting longer than you think, though.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
But next gen's a big window, so
for perspective, Persona 4, or the original release, was I think 2008 or 2006 actually, because it was a PS2 game. So it was 2006.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 10 years because the Persona 5 came out in 2016. So that was 10 years between them.
So my major hope in terms of whether that will change sort of release cadence now versus what happened before is how much of a hit the recent game and then probably 4 since they released it on Steam as well have been with Western audiences. Yeah. Like now they've got this, it's like Yakuza in a way. It's like this newfound Western market, sort of enthusiasm. Maybe they'll ramp up their focus on it as a result of that.
That's a good point. And another point is that they have their engine now. So the engine that Persona 5 was made in, they've been developing during that 10 years. And the Catherine, like Catherine was kind of like their test game
full body
on that engine. So that's a pretty small like puzzle game. But that was them, testing out that engine. So now that they've got that in place, that might help out the development pipeline too. So maybe we'll see a Persona 6, but I'd expect 2026 for that, or maybe 2025.
2026 or 2025 should theoretically still be this gen, so we'll see.
Should be, yeah.
Yeah, not expecting it anytime soon, but I'll get very excited when it's announced, if it gets announced. Yeah.
I think for me, I want to see an XCOM 3. That would get me mega excited. I'd be totally down for that. I want to see a Jedi Fallen Order 2 because Fallen Order 1 was so good. And I want to keep on... before the end of the year, I actually intend on playing that again on the highest difficulty.
They can't possibly not have a sequel to that. They must.
Oh, the way the game ends totally sets up a sequel.
Would it be Jedi Fallen Order 2 or would it be Jedi something else?
It could be Jedi Risen Order or something. Throwing it out there. But the other one, we know it exists, but and this kind of plays into what you were talking about, Luke. I want to see Halo Infinite turn into the perfect 10-year game. Because what Master Chief Collection has done, I freaking love. I think that it's so cool, especially like on PC, the way that we've gotten like this drip feed of old Halo titles that have come out remastered for PC. In literally a week's time, Halo 4 is coming out on PC. I don't know who is excited for that. It's not me.
I am actually, because I want to play it.
I do want to play it, but I also know that I'm not going to enjoy it a great deal. Anyway, I want to, and this kind of ties into the other thing that I want, and it's not really like, because at first I was going to say I disagree with all of you because I don't want to see sequels, but I do. I want to see developers take fun risks again.
Yeah.
Like Watch Dogs Legion, I think is a fun risk, right? Like they're trying something different, and I think it's actually worked quite well and it's paid off. Halo ODST was a fun risk, and I kind of want to see Infinite do the same thing. I think there's tons of potential in there to be like, okay, well, we have Halo Infinite, and rather than just the next 10 years being us, here's all of these multiplayer maps, but like, here's Halo Infinite ODST, right? Like, give me an ODST story that takes place in the Infinite world. Like, I think that's just a winning idea. And they kind of experimented that with Halo 5. They had this whole Spartan story thing. I forget what they called it exactly.
Are you talking about fun risks with existing franchises though? Because I don't see any lack of fun risks with new titles. Because the thing springs to mind, like immediately I'll be thinking like Deathloop, Ghostwire Tokyo, Death Stranding, great example.
Yeah,
you know.
No, like we are seeing kind of a return to that sort of thing. I think it's been lacking, but I think it's more the big players don't take fun risks. Typically, like the ones that you've mentioned, that's all been very, very recent. But like Ubisoft typically doesn't take fun risks.
True.
And Legion has kind of taken that release risk. Odyssey took that risk in terms of like the role playing mechanics, and I think it paid off. But more along the lines of like Nintendo and Mario 35. I forgot what the freaking number is. But like, you know, this is a game, we're going to try it out, see if it works, and people are gone, nah, this doesn't work, and they're like, cool, well, it's gone now. Free in. Like I want to see studios do that sort of thing more, and I think there's some franchises out there, Call of Duty, that really need a shake-up. Like they need something to mix up the formula. And I think there's tons of potential in like what you were talking about, Luke. Like the idea of Call of Duty as a platform and FIFA as a platform, and NBA as a platform. You know, like give me those things, then take fun risks, because you've got the structure there now. You're not paying millions of dollars to rebuild the wheel.
100%.
So yeah, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that kind of playing out in the industry, especially from the big players and the big AAA studios. And exactly what Christian said earlier, like Naughty Dog not just doing the same thing they've always done. So
a new IP from Naughty Dog would be a cool next phase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A new game structure as well, personally.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to mention my like pie in the sky wish for this generation that is never going to happen, and that is for the Final Fantasy VII remake to complete within this generation.
Oh,
I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to see it.
How many entries do you think that's going to be? Another 2?
I think you'll only get 1, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think you'll get part 2, and then part 3 will be like bridging whatever form the next generation takes. It'll be bridging that.
It's going to be a different kind of experience to what we've played already, though. They'll have
Maybe
to
I'm wrong.
Truncate a lot of the original if they're going to do it in one more entry. Holy shit!
I'm sticking by my other pie in the sky one, which is Phil Spencer on stage at Nintendo.
What would my pie in the sky be? I actually don't know. That's a weird one. I feel like I'm kind of getting everything that I want at the moment. Honestly. Okay, so we've got another 2 big expansions for Destiny 2 planned out over the next couple of years. If they continue,
I was going to jokingly say like Destiny 3, but I don't want.
I don't want Destiny 3 either. I want it to continue past Lightfall. Is what I want, and be telling over the next couple of years as to what the game looks like by that point. Yeah. No, hang on. Here we go. Here's my pie in the sky number 1 thing that I want, which I don't know how likely this is to happen. I know they want to do it. Whether they're actually successful at it or not is entirely another matter. I want complete 100% parity across all different incarnations of the main Minecraft platform. So I want Java and Bedrock to be completely at parity in all areas. So no more of this.
It's not going to happen.
No more of this Redstone works differently in Java versus Bedrock kind of bullshit and the different cadence of release sort of patches for each one. I want it all
kill
to be
Java.
the same.
Let the past die.
Fuck no.
No. Java Edition's the best one because it's the one that can actually use mods.
Yeah, I would actually argue kill Java only if they can make Redstone function in Bedrock like it does in Java and open up Bedrock to modding. That's the only condition.
If Bedrock gets modding, but so this is the problem, right? And why it won't happen is because then all of those platforms, people that are making mods need to make mods for every console.
It should be theoretically the same stuff though if they can get parity across all platforms. Okay, this is me not knowing how
100%. Right. It's all very, very different.
But that would at least open the door, whereas now the door is firmly wedged shut. So
yes. Yeah. Like it's not impossible. It's just more actually, no. It's totally possible. The thing that's impossible is getting every single mod working on every single platform. Yeah. That's the thing that's impossible.
You'd probably have to draw a line in the sand, and a lot of past stuff wouldn't work, whereas stuff made from that point onwards would. Which I'm fine with.
People that are doing modding are saying, we support this platform, and I guarantee most of the mods are going to be on PC. So
yeah. Well, most of the good ones would be retooled for new generation Minecraft anyway, if that was the case, I think. So, yeah.
I have another wish. And that's Bungie's next game to be really good because they're working on something.
That's true. They are. Who knows what the fuck that is? Interesting. Can you imagine Bungie doing something that's not sci-fi? That would be super interesting, wouldn't it?
I can imagine them doing that, but I can't imagine them not doing a first-person shooter anymore. I think that, like... But not that I wish them not to. It's just hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Make a good self-contained single-player shooter set in the Destiny universe.
That would be awesome.
Ooh, yeah.
I would love like a Destiny Stories thing from Bungie. Like that would be awesome. Give us Destiny ODST.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, actually. Yeah,
that would be really cool.
Or even Destiny Reach.
Yeah,
Destiny Reach. Yeah,
even not Guardians, like some other characters.
No. Literally, like quite literally, Destiny Reach. Like, do Destiny during the darkness. Like,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like that's fucking great. I love that idea. Like, because they could literally do the same marketing campaign from the beginning. You know the end. Like, you know everything's gonna get fucked up.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think it's a cool idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe it's set on Titan and you actually get to see what happens with Sloane taking on a pyramid ship all by her lonesome in a power armor suit.
By her lonesome?
Be fucking cool. Yeah,
by her lonesome. Oh, nice. Christian, why do you have better puns than Luke?
Somebody had to step up. It's actually good. Anyway, I think that's a perfect note to leave things tonight. So, we've definitely got some things to look forward to next gen. I think quite a few of the things we've talked about are theoretically well within reach. It'll just be interesting to see what these companies prioritize and what oddballs, odd curveballs, I should say, they throw at us out of nowhere. Because I don't think at the beginning of this gen we could have anticipated. Maybe we could have anticipated some of the direction that something like esports has taken, and I think that maybe we could have guessed where VR might end up. But some of the other shit, like the way that influencers have shaped a lot of the games sort of media industry, and the rise of battle royales and all that sort of stuff. That's something we couldn't have anticipated. That's just out of nowhere. So yeah, it's
absolutely
going to be real interesting to see what the next big hot genres are moving forward. But fuck all that shit off into the future, because we've got a Destiny expansion in a few hours to look forward to. So hell yeah, boys. Looking
time to get a nap in.
That's right. Get a quick nap in and off we go to the races. So that's it for tonight's show. Thanks everybody for listening. And if you want to check out all of our content, of course, you can do so at the hub, which links to everything, channelendgame.com, and that'll take you through to our Twitter at Party Loaded Show, Facebook, Party Loaded on Facebook, YouTube, youtube.com/channelendgame, and all of the others. But you can also catch our show live here on twitch.tv/Party Loaded every Wednesday night. So Tuesday being tonight is a bit of an anomaly. We're typically Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time. We're either streaming games or we're running the podcast. Next week we'll be playing Destiny on Wednesday night, unless something
most likely
weird happens betwing now and then. You can pretty much expect
Watch Dogs Legion gets a patch.
Even so, I'm a force you to play some Destiny.
I probably won't be picking it up again for a while.
Yeah,
like at least not until we try the raid. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good times ahead. But gentlemen, thank you very much for tonight. Any closing thoughts? Anything that you're looking forward to over the next day that's not Destiny related?
No, it's nice to have a new generation on the horizon. It's a good feeling. It's about time. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to us having a fair bit of PS5 chat next fortnight as well, as Christian and I at least get to try out the new shit and work out how the adaptive controls actually work and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kick off with Miles Morales, and Christian, you're going to be playing Demon Souls. Yep. So we'll have some new PS5 next gen games to talk about next episode. But that's that.
I'm looking forward to not getting my 3080 before the end of the generation.
I think just like the reason why I wasn't too broken up about Cyberpunk getting delayed, I think we've all collectively got enough shit to do for the next fortnight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it will be fine. Anyway, on that note, let's go and do that shit. So thanks everybody for listening. We will see you next episode. Until then, good night.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.